Hello. Today we're going to take a trip up to Ely, Nevada. It's some 300 miles north of where I live here in Las Vegas. I was up there earlier this year, primarily to concentrate on the city of Ely and the surrounding mines. But this trip I'm going to concentrate on the Nevada Northern Railway Museum. It's quite a great place. It goes back to the early 1900s. I want to take a trip around there and look at the Railroad Museum and all those exhibits that they have there to see and kind of educate you on the history of it. So come along with me and let's go do some exploration there at the Nevada Northern Railway Museum. Got my travel coffee, ready to go up there. Come along with me. The Nevada Northern Railway Complex is the best preserved, least altered, and most complete main yard complex remaining from the steam railroad era. It was first established in 1905 to support the area's booming copper mining industry. The era of dieselization of the railroad industry during the second half of the 20th century led to alterations and demolitions of railroad yards and shops nationwide. The East Ely yard escaped modernization because of its geographical remoteness and the decline of the mining industry it once served. The Nevada Northern owes its beginnings to the discovery of development of large deposits of copper near Ely. Copper ore was first discovered by Dan McDonald around 1900 in this area, and in 1903 a small tent camp was created to house workers of the White Pine Copper Company. It was named Ruth after McDonald's daughter. In 1904, a mill was built by the Nevada Consolidated Copper Company, and Ruth's post office opened on February of that same year. The largest mines were near the towns of Ruth and the other was Kimberly. The mines were known as the Ruth Mine, the Eureka Mine, and the Gilroy Mines. The region's largest mines were purchased in 1902 by Mark Requa, who was president of the Eureka and Palisade Railroad in central Nevada. Requa then organized the White Pine Copper Company to develop his new properties, and it soon became apparent that rail access to the isolated region would be essential to fully exploit the potential of the mines. The district was remote from railroad transportation. Eureka, then the nearest railway station, is 85 miles to the west, but railway construction from that point was never seriously considered because of the much more favorable, though longer, route from Cobre on the Southern Pacific 140 miles north of Ely. This preferred route follows the Steptoe Valley and has a maximum grade of 0.7% and maximum curves at 6 degrees and practically neither any cuts or fills, versus the Eureka route would have had 4 summits to cross with a maximum grade of 4%. The investment in the railway was rather large, and it meant that at least $2 million in railway, $2.5 million in plant, and $500,000 for mining equipment, or a total of $5 million. To justify this investment for a deposit of low copper content demanded millions of tons of developed ore and absolute knowledge as to its concentrating value. The Ely area copper properties were further merged in 1904, forming the Nevada Consolidated Copper Company, and the Nevada Northern Railway was incorporated on June 1 of 1905 to build a line connecting the Nevada Consolidated Mines and Smelter to the National Rail Network. Construction began on the 140-mile standard gauge track in September 11, 1905. The work began at Cobre, where the northern Nevada connected with the southern Pacific, and proceeded southward. The line was finished a year later, its completion marked by a 2-day celebration in Ely. The railroad's symbolic final spike, made of local copper, was driven by Requa in Ely on September 29, 1906, which was designated as Railroad Day. Additional Ely area trackage was constructed in 1907-1908 to serve the local mining industry. The branch line from Ely to the mines, covering just a few miles, was as difficult to build as the construction of the main line. This trackage was known as the ore line, which included a route bypassing Ely to the north and continuing west up Robinson Canyon to the copper mines at Ruth. It was finally finished to Copper Flat April 1, 1908, and to the Veteran Mine a few weeks later. East of Ely, the ore line project saw the construction of the High Line, a branch leading to Nevada's consolidated new copper smelter and concentrator at McGill. The ore line immediately became the busiest segment of the Nevada Northern by far. It had dozens of loaded and empty ore trains daily. As a subsidiary of the Nevada Consolidated, the primary purpose of the Nevada Northern throughout its history was the haulage of copper ores and products. Other freight traffic was also carried, and the railroad operated a daily passenger train between East Ely and Cobra until 1941. On July 31st of 1941, the passenger train known as the Steptoe Valley Flyer ran on the Nevada Northern Railway for the last time. The daily train from Ely to Cobra and back had once been a lifeline of the communities, carrying passengers, mail, and express shipments and providing a vital link with the outside world. With the construction of good roads in the region, the passenger train faced dwindling revenues, and the railroad was forced to look at an alternative to the train. After getting approval from the regulatory agencies, the railroad switched to a bus service between Ely and Wells on August 1, 1941. A series of corporate financial transactions in the 1920s and 1930s brought Nevada Consolidated under the control of the Kennecott Copper Corporation, and Nevada Consolidated was merged into Kennecott in 1942. Magma Copper bought the Ruth area mines in 1991 and began work on reopening the mine in 1994. In 1996, BHP acquired Magma and operated the Ruth mines from 1996 to 1999. Magma BHP invested around $480 million in the mine and plant. The mine was closed again in 1999 due to the low copper prices. Quadra Mining bought the Ruth area mines in 2004 and reopened the mine later that year. Since 2005, production was averaged about 125 million pounds of copper per year. The mines are still in operation today. Here is a few historical buildings that still exist today in Ruth. Just for general interest, I'm showing you them here. Faced with declining ore reserves and low copper prices, Kennecott closed its Ruth area mines in May of 1978, ending the ore trains between Ruth and McGill smelter. The smelter closed on June 20, 1983, and the Nevada Northern suspended all operations thereafter. Citizens of Ely, concerned with the economic impacts of the loss of the mining and the railroad, approached Kennecott with the intent to acquire the railroad and open it as a tourist operation. In 1983, the Kennecott Copper Corporation donated the Nevada Northern Railway Museum. The Nevada Northern Railway is the last of its kind, the sole survivor of a grand era in the Silver State of Nevada. Now a National Historic Landmark, the Nevada Northern Railway Museum takes you back to a time when the Iron Horse ruled the rails. It is America's best preserved standard gauge short line and a complete rail facility. Today, when you visit the museum, you can do a walking tour of the machine shop and engine house. Shows the public what it's like to maintain the railroad equipment. You can also take train rides. You need to check the schedule out that they have on their website. Standing here at the freight house, just taking a panoramic view of the East Ely train yard. Today, these passenger cars are used on the regular excursion trains. These cars were built in 1928 by the Pullman Company. They were originally built for the Illinois Central as standard commuter trailers. They were acquired by the Nevada Northern Railway in 1995. These cars are very similar to the ones that they called school trains that ran between Ruth and Ely and between McGill and Ely, transporting students that attended the White Pine School in Ely, also known as shift trains that transported miners and other employees between Ely, Ruth, and McGill. School buses replaced the school train in 1941 that carried the kids from McGill to the Ely High School. A series of 4 8-wheel cabooses, numbered 22 through number 25, originally built in 1955 by the Kennecott Copper Corporation and were used by the Nevada Mines Division. 3 of the cabooses went to the Kennecott in Utah after the Nevada shutdown. This caboose was donated to the Nevada Northern Railway Museum. Let's continue our walking tour as we enter into the engine house. This structure was originally built in 1908, was altered in 1917, then again it was enlarged in 1941. The 1941 enlargement changed the appearance of the building, replacing the wooden barn doors with metal roll-up ones, as well as adding the skylights. Most railroads house their machine shops and engine house in a separate building. However, the two here are only separated by a wall. The machine shop contains tools for the machining of parts. Most of the machinery in this room is original to the railroad and are still used by railroad mechanics and machinists to maintain the historic equipment. Locomotive number 801 was originally built by the Baldwin Company in 1942. It is currently undergoing restoration to the operation condition at the Nevada Northern Railway Museum. They called locomotive number 81 the Phoenix. It was built in March 1917 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works. In March of 1917, the railroad purchased number 81 new from the Baldwin Locomotive Works for $23,700 to be placed in general freight service on the line to Cobrae. Number 81 was retired and donated to the White Pine Public Museum in 1961 and returned with number 93 to the railroad in 1990. Stored in the engine house for over 20 years, she is currently undergoing restoration to operational status. Nevada Northern Railway Rotary Snowplow B, the Beast they called it, The rotary snowplow was another vital piece of equipment the railroad purchased in 1907 after a massive snowstorm halted operations. It was built by the American Locomotive Company. Up to 3 engines were needed to push the plow up the line. It had a cosmetic restoration, but it is not operational. The blade up front is 10 feet in diameter, and the plow could throw snow up to 30 feet off the tracks. The Nevada Northern Railway Wrecking Crane A, the Big Hook, built in 1907, Industrial Works of Bay City, Michigan, has a lifting capacity of 100 tons. One of the first pieces of equipment purchased by the railroad in 1907 was this crane, which was first used to help build the smelter in McGill and to clear wrecks along the line. Last time it was used by the railroad in 1983 to help clear a wreck on the Western Pacific Railroad in northern Nevada. It has since been retired. Museum staff returned the crane to operational status in 2005, and it is used for historic demonstrations and the occasional re-railing of equipment and other heavy lifting on the site. This video is a demonstration of the wrecking crane, also known as the Big Hook. It was provided by Nevada Northern Railway Archives. Of engine number 40, purchased brand new in July of 1910 for passenger service, one of only 2 mainline locomotives the railroad purchased, built by the Baldwin Company. Its purchase price was $13,139. It was used on the last mainline passenger train, July 31 of 1941. Brought back in September 1956 for the 50th anniversary celebrations, launched a second career as an excursion locomotive for the railroad. When the locomotive was no longer needed after World War II, she was put on a list of locomotives to be scrapped. Because the crews loved the engine so much, it mysteriously disappeared whenever higher-ups came looking. There were 18 miles of track in the mine, along with tracks at the mill and several buildings along the line to hide her. Her movements like a ghost in the night and a whistle unlike the ore trains earned her the nickname of the Ghost Train. Thanks to their efforts, she survived and still operates today, pulling passengers just as the men who built her intended. Locomotive number 40 ran its final excursion on October 19 of 2020, and it is now undergoing its Federal Railroad Administration mandated boiler inspection and overhaul. In addition to that inspection, the Nevada Northern is also going to completely rebuild engine number 40's running gear and tender. I'm not aware of any announcement as to when locomotive number 40 will be returning to service. This is the coaling tower, constructed in 1917. All the mainline steam locomotives burned coal, so a coaling tower was needed to replenish the supply in the locomotive tenders. Once the steam locomotives were retired, there was no use for the tower. In the 1970s, the railroad attempted to use the coal bin for sand. The experiment failed and the tower was completely abandoned. This is the water tower and water control building, constructed in 1914. It stands over 75 feet tall. The water tower is the tallest structure in the railyard. The riveted steel tank has a 100,000 gallon capacity. This is the ice house, constructed around 1915. In the days before mechanical refrigeration, ice was collected in the winter from ponds and stored in this building. The 12-inch thick walls were insulated using sawdust to ensure that the ice would last throughout the year. The ice was then used in ice boxes in the cabooses, passenger cars, buildings, and the occasional visiting refrigerator car. With the rise of mechanical refrigeration in the 1940s, the ice house was no longer needed. This is the paint shop building. Construction began in October of 1913 and was completed in January of 1914 at a cost of $5,082. The building was renovated and enlarged at some point between 1923 and 1930. Crews work here to paint all of the railroad's locomotives and the rolling stock. Locomotive 93 was the last of 4 locomotives ordered for one-line service by the American Smelter Securities Company for the Nevada Northern Railway. Built in January 1909 at the American Locomotive Works in Pittsburgh plant, there's no reason why she still exists other than luck. Considered by White Pine News to be a monster locomotive, she's actually a mid-sized steam locomotive. The original cost was $17,610. When she arrived at East Ely, she was immediately put to work hauling the ore trains from Copper Flat to McGill and back again. Day in and day out, Locomotive 93 hauled the ore trains back and forth. In January 1952, the other 3 locomotives were part of the original order were sent to McGill to be scrapped. All 3 sister locomotives were cut up. However, Locomotive 93 would be different. She was kept as a backup locomotive. In 1961, her days in the Nevada Northern were over. For 29 years, Locomotive 93 sat outdoors through rain and snow, slowly rusting away. Then in 1990, a trade was made. The White Pine Public Museum traded all of the rail equipment that had been on display there to the Railroad Museum in exchange for the Cherry Creek Depot. Locomotive 93 was towed back to the Nevada Northern Railway engine house. Project 93 was started with the goal of putting Locomotive 93 back in service. In 1993, after 3 years of hard work, Locomotive 93 was back in service. Hey, thanks for watching my video on the Nevada Northern Railway Museum. I had quite the fun up there exploring that place. The facility is open all year round, as I understand. They let you roam around pretty much as you wish, as long as you're staying in safe areas. Free to take photos. I understand that they have a schedule where you can go take train rides. I haven't seen that schedule yet, but apparently they produce it. Have many train rides throughout the year that you can take your family up there and enjoy. Every time I do one of these videos, I do a lot of research before I go, and then I come back and start editing, and then I find more research and find more things about it. And it's quite the process. I put this thing together, but I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm fortunate enough that I can make the time to put these together. I really appreciate you guys watching. And if you can get up there, I highly recommend it. So until the next video, we'll see you later.